Hey, good afternoon, ARB. We are now live and recording. You guys are good to
Okay,
go.
well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you, LTV. Excuse me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathleen Cunningham. I welcome you to the March 9th, 2023 Architectural Review Board meeting of the town of East Hampton. It's my privilege to chair this committee, this agency of the board. This afternoon, we had planned to begin with a talk from Kim Cordy of the Peconic Land Trust, but she's been unavoidably detained, so we'll postpone her outreach to us for another meeting. So at this point, I'll just jump into the agenda. And may I have a motion for approval of the minutes of February 16th, 2023?
So moved.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, passed and carried. Oh, and I should say, Diane Benson, member Benson is under the weather, and we wish you well. Feel better soon. But we have a quorum, so we'll proceed with the business of the board. Okay, the first, yes, thank you. It's policies and procedures discussion. The board has been reviewing its policies and procedures, and as we have been discussing at various times, the ARB has the power to conduct a public hearing on applications that it feels it would benefit from the information received from such a public hearing. And so we are amending the policies and procedures that we adopted and last revised was not March 9th. It was January of some kind. Yeah, this says last revised 9 March. So anyway, we adopted it earlier this year, but we're going to make an adjustment to item 12. And I'll just read that for the public's benefit. And did you get a chance to see this, Frank? I sent it around.
Briefly.
Yeah, okay. It really just gives us some rough outlines of when we would consider having a public hearing. It will not be for a fence or a gate or, you know, really simple things, but for larger projects that we feel would have an impact on the community character over which this board has jurisdiction. So I'll just read from that. The Architectural Review Board, under the authority granted by Section 2559-23 of the Town Code, shall have the discretion to require the holding of a public hearing for all applications which it has jurisdiction to review and approve, deny, or approve with conditions, and where the board believes it's doing so would assist in its review of the application. Generally, where the scale and potential impacts to community character are minor enough, the board shall waive this requirement of the applicants. However, the board finds that certain construction projects, given their mass and scale, which are within areas of or on properties which contain unique scenic and historic resources, pose an inherent potential for adverse impacts, particularly with regard to maintaining character and assuring harmony, both of which are specific standards and criteria which govern the board's architectural design and review as per sections 255-7-60 of the Town Code. Additionally, it is the specific purpose of the board under section 255-7-10 of the Town Code to, quote, help to achieve these goals and thereby serve to protect and enhance property values, private investments, and the character, historical interests, beauty, and general welfare of the town, close quote. Accordingly, the board, in the interest of protecting the community interests noted above, shall seek the input of the public by generally requiring the holding of a public hearing for the following types of applications, unless good cause to waive this hearing can be shown. For all activities which require approval, denial, or approval with conditions pursuant to section 255-7-30 C and D of the Town Code, the following applications shall require the holding of a public hearing. 1, all applications for the construction of a new single-family residence, whether there is one presently existing on the subject property or not. 2, all applications proposing additions or accessory structures exceeding 500 square feet in footprint. Okay, that's the edit. So does the board have any discussion on those edits?
All applications for the construction or just some?
All applications, we can have a public
Oh,
hearing.
okay, but we don't have
But
to.
like as not, we will have, I mean,
Okay.
my guess is we'll have about 4 or 5 a year,
Okay. got it.
given our work and what we've seen. But presently, we have no formal mechanism. We've always had the power. This board has always had the power to conduct a public hearing, but it has never employed that power. And there have been times, which we've discussed, when I think the board would have benefited from hearing from, particularly neighbors or on surrounding properties with respect to certain constructions happening in their neighborhoods.
Is there a reason for the 500 square feet?
There was a suggestion by the planning department that 500 square feet was just kind of a,
Minimum.
minimum. Yeah.
It's a case by case basis, though. If there's something that
It would
comes
be,
up, the board
yes,
can-
and there'd be nothing to prohibit us from, we can pretty much conduct a public hearing on anything we want.
Okay, so it's
But
not.
this is just to give the public some general guidelines about what they might expect, applicants, so that they have some expectation.
Okay.
We do not want to abuse this privilege because it's burdensome for everybody, but we want to be able to collect as much information and get as much feedback, especially on projects that are going to have a big impact on the community character as we can. And this just gives applicants a rough idea of what they might expect to learn. They're going to have to conduct a public hearing about. Okay. So I don't want to rush you, Frank. Are you good with this?
I'm good with it.
Okay. Can I have a motion to accept this change, please?
I make a motion to accept the changes to the policies and procedures.
Okay, may I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. All right, so we miss you, Diane. We wish you were here. Assume you would agree with that, but we've adopted that policy and procedure. Yay for us. Okay. Now then, change to commercial. New singular wireless at St. Peter's Chapel. This is the application that keeps following me from board to board. Hi, Kelly. Suffolk County Tax Act number 300-103-6-23 and 24. I am going to defer to Eric here. Eric, would you mind giving the history of this application? Most people on this board understand that this is we are being compelled by a legal agreement, a legal settlement that was made with New Singular Wireless to entertain, one of two options for a tower on the St. Luke's.
The board voted and approved the settlement agreement previously.
Right. But some of the people that are on this board now were not on the board then, which
Yes,
is.
but it's the same board.
No, I understand, but just for background, sometimes we need background. So the board approved it, and now we're having to choose between a tower and a campanile, basically. It's if we reject one, the other will automatically be erected. So we're gonna.
We have to choose one, or we can approve both.
I don't think we
Well,
can.
that wouldn't happen. How could you have to?
One option.
Yeah, I can.
We have to choose.
Yeah, we have to
The
pick one.
monopole is the first. It's what the application is for.
That's fun.
No, I got it.
Sorry to lean on you, but
Yeah,
you're the
no,
best
no,
person to do
not a problem
this.
at all.
Yep.
So what you see on the screen right now was the previous application. It was in fact approved by the ARB, but denied by the planning board. So in essence, the project was denied. But this was a proposal to build a 50-foot tall bell tower, as you can see, roughly behind to the north and east of the existing chapel building. The chapel predates zoning, is historic by any measure, and was at the time. Since that time, it actually has been identified by SHPO, the New York State Office of Historic Preservation, as eligible for the State and National Register of Historic Places. So that's a significant change from the last time this was reviewed. But basically, this was denied. There was litigation. I won't go into all the details. Neighbors were involved. There was an Article 78 against the town planning board decision. Basically, the result of that litigation was a settlement agreement that was signed by both the planning board and the architectural review board to at least consider an alternative, which I will take down this visual and show you the subject application, which is that alternative.
Sorry, this was denied by which?
The site plan, the planning board denied the site plan. This was one of those occasions where ARB approved something that planning had not. So that's kind of why we stage
planning
it
board
differently.
denied.
That was one of the examples.
So, and there are various, visual renderings accompanied, but, I centered on this one just because it shows you basically the most, conspicuous rendering of that. So I'll show you another similar visual rendering in a second, but basically this is looking from Old Stone. This is the settlement agreement option, which is a steel pole that instead of 50 feet, of which the bell tower would be, this is 70 feet. The applicants propose to have panel antennas in 2 sectors, basically at the top of the pole with an equipment compound at the base. The campanile or bell tower design had the equipment in the base of that structure. So I will switch to the visual rendering to give you somewhat of a comparison. And just bear with me for a second because I'm going to have to scroll down and zoom in. I guess perhaps this is the best rendering to focus on.
While you're doing that, just as a point of small clarification, there was federal litigation about it, and that was what the settlement agreement resolved. It's part of the 78 regarding the settlement agreement itself, and was not brought by the neighbors in this case as far as this application.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That's Kelly Wright, who's the town's outside counsel. So this is a similar visual rendering of the subject application in front of you. Basically, though, I will say the result of the litigation is that you are in somewhat of an either-or position, where if this current proposal is not granted the necessary approvals within an adopted and accepted timeframe, basically the applicants, AT&T, New Singular Wireless, would be given the opportunity to construct their originally proposed facility, which is the 50-foot tall bell tower. So with that in mind, under the current town code, the ARB scope for this application is somewhat limited. It's basically limited to aesthetic appearance of the facility. So in other words, and again, this is somewhat dictated by the settlement agreement, but you won't be looking at location within the property or the specific equipment that they may or may not need. Your scope of review is really limited to, materials, colors, that being the color of the pole itself and the equipment, and then also the equipment compound, which I will switch over to another rendering, which will give you a better visual of what the facility would look like from Old Stone Highway, and then also showing you the but I'll make everyone nauseous by scrolling around first. But so this is basically what the facility would look like being directly in front of it on Old Stone Highway. The applicants, it's my understanding, are flexible on the design and coloration of the fencing of the equipment compound, as well as the tower and the equipment mounted to it. So basically, that is what the ARB is charged with discussing today and considering what they would like as far as materials and coloration, perhaps any other minor amendments to the proposal that could buffer or soften the appearance of it. Again, this is in front of the planning board concurrently, who is the lead agency under SECRA. They did review it last Wednesday with their initial review. Declared lead agency made some recommendations to the applicants for consideration, including perhaps taking that road and having it be a little bit curved so that there would be a buffer of vegetation remaining in front so that you didn't have this straight shot into the facility. But for the most part, what you see is what you get, and the board should have a discussion on potential changes that could mitigate the conspicuous nature of the appearance of the facility.
So Eric, that road is not there currently?
No.
Okay.
No, that's proposed to be cut into. In fact,
yeah.
As part of this visual rendering, this is the accompanying picture. So in fact, actually, if I just zoom out a little bit and then try to redo that, that'll show you the side-by-side of existing with the balloon and the before indicating the max height of the proposed tower.
And St. Luke's is getting paid a rental fee for allowing this to be on their property?
Yes, presumably they would, as the
Benefit.
the landlord, they would be, gathering a fee from New Singular Wireless as a
Right,
tenant.
but that's not part of our review, right?
No, but I'm just
Yeah.
wondering why it's
Yeah.
here. I mean,
Oh, yeah, no, that's why
this was
anybody does them.
way
Yeah,
before
they
my
get
time
money.
on the
Yeah,
board,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
so who would make, I mean, one requires a lot of maintenance, the bell tower, to me, it looks like, and
Yeah.
one
Oh.
requires no maintenance. Is that right?
Well, it requires routine maintenance. Additionally, they're proposing a generator. So routine.
I mean, aesthetic maintenance, paint, peeling.
Right, you're
Yeah,
right.
woodwork.
One is
minor
a
maintenance,
structure that
perhaps
looks like the
yearly,
church, and the
bi-yearly.
other is, yeah.
I should mention too, I forgot to say this, this is very important. Since you are in essentially a position of this or that, we do recommend that you approve this design, really solely for the reason that we feel it would be easier to decommission in the future should other alternatives present themselves in this area of Springs / Northern Amagansett to provide coverage. There is a known coverage gap in this area, which is a big part of the reason why this application is in front of you. The applicants, I won't go into all the details, but if they can demonstrate a coverage gap, and there is one, some form of facility is essentially required to be installed in this area. So basically, that's why this is in front of you, but we would recommend that you approve this option as opposed to the bell tower, simply because it would be easier to remove in the future. That stance has been backed up by SHPO, by New York State Historic Preservation, for the exact reason that it would be easier to decommission. So we feel this is the superior choice of the two.
Okay.
So just to be
Thanks.
clear, so option one is the Campanile,
Mhm.
the same design in which they had originally proposed, which is 50 feet high, or option B, which is this standalone at 75 feet,
70.
70 feet.
70.
But yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, those are the,
And the Campanile would be building, I'm just curious, would this be building, like modifying the structure of the existing building?
No.
Or would it be structurally independent?
Structurally independent. I believe it was roughly 5 feet away from the side of the chapel building, and then the addition that was done in the rear.
Okay.
I can show you the overhead site plan of it.
So I
but
can
yeah.
understand that it could be easier to decommission this, but it's not to say the other one could not be demolished without architecturally changing or structurally changing what is there now.
yeah, because
That's
it's an
correct.
independent,
Yeah, both the
building,
construction
yes.
of the bell tower and its
it would be more complex.
eventual
though. Yeah.
removal
Yeah.
It
would
would
not
be a-
require altering the chapel building itself.
But what sort of, okay, so would there be, I guess one thing I'm wondering is, so you made the point that it's easier to decommission this, but I'm not quite sure that I understand why one can't. It didn't seem to be that difficult to decommission the Campanile unless access to it is the issue, because you're essentially just doing a demolition, which a large house can be demolished in a day out here.
And that is part of the problem. I don't have all of the details of it, but the road that comes into the north of the chapel is a common driveway that services residential lots to the rear of this site. So in theory, unless those homeowners gave permission for access over their common driveway, they couldn't access the location of where the Campanile would be constructed easily. They would probably have to come around the back of the facility
you
behind
can-
the chapel.
You
So
could put a pallet in and you can
yeah,
demolish
it's
it,
certainly
you can
doable.
crane out the pallets. So I'm not to speak to I haven't even been to the back of the chapel to see how it would be done, but I'm a little skeptical about the argument that it's much easier to decommission that. But my first reaction is, as much as I would like to believe that this would go away with the pace of technological innovation, these types of towers have a way of sticking around in this community.
The scope of our review is limited to the aesthetic appearances of the tower. more or less at this point. The,
Yeah.
But we're
But-
tasked with choosing one.
Right, but, and I think it's okay for Frank to, if one of the incentives for choosing one over the other is how easily decommissioned they are, I think it's worth hearing, worth having this part of the discussion. Even though our purview is only the aesthetics of it.
But my understanding is
Yeah.
you're getting to that point.
Yeah.
Right.
I think so.
It's part of our aesthetics, but I do think it is,
Yeah, I get it.
I think
get it.
we're allowed to speculate a bit
Mhm.
about, not to say what the owner would do of this tower, but the possibilities of it, such as even if some technology did come along, there is a possibility, there's no requirement for them to adapt that new
Mhm.
technology.
Yeah, no, I
So
hear
they
you.
could continue to use this
Mhm.
indefinitely.
I mean, the decommissioning part as an assessment of which of these we would approve it confuses me a little bit because I agree with Frank. I can't think of a time when I've seen a cell tower that was erected, that was removed, it wasn't just replaced with another one, as a practical matter, which is, I think, what you're getting at. And
Is the tower in Montauk, the communications
Right.
tower.
right. And
Springs Firehouse.
oh, it was 100 of them. Well, that's not,
That's, they don't use it and it's there.
well, yeah, because they can't use it. 'cause-
Yeah, but
so-
still.
Right. But it hasn't been taken down, is your point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm just, I'm a little confused too by, I assume that the recommendation from SHPO was based on the fact that this tower could be removed more easily. The tower could be removed more easily than Campanile. But not having read their comments, I'm assuming that there was some other component of this that had to do with the architectural appropriateness of the Campanile. Is that correct?
yes,
Someone?
What
it's
was
in
your
the,
question again? I'm sorry, because I'm distracted by the
Yeah.
two
No,
conversations.
I'm trying, what's the first conversation?
No, Eric was looking for something and.
No,
Jim was answering.
I'm trying to,
so I can read the,
if you would,
so it's a,
Yeah,
this is from
their comments verbatim are,
are they here?
Somewhat brief, and
Is
they're
it
in there.
here? And I just don't
they're in
see
the
it.
memorandum
Victoria
that I
Brennan.
prepared as well.
Oh, okay.
is this the right one? The New York State?
Yes, that looks like it.
Is
So
it
it's,
attached to it?
This one?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yes. Well, both the tower addition and the monopole installation will have an adverse effect on the chapel. It is our opinion that the installation of the monopole has a less detrimental effect on the chapel's character defining features for several reasons. The monopole, while visually incompatible with the building, can be removed without damaging the historic building, and it does not create a false sense of architectural history because it is clearly a contemporary installation. We recommend that the Federal Communications Commission and the New York State Historical Preservation Office develop a memorandum agreement to resolve adverse effects. We suggest mitigation to include the installation of the monopole instead of the tower addition to the church, and revising the site plans that the monopole is sited in a location that minimizes its visual impact on the chapel, and using existing and new vegetation to screen the tower. And that is the letter from the Historic Sites Restoration Coordinator dated February 6, 2023.
Okay. Thank you for that, David. Yeah, I can't find it here in this memo that I have, but, so then that's a,
That's the recommendation from the State Historic Preservation.
That's
Right,
actually
right.
the July
And-
22nd, 2022 letter that's stapled to
Okay.
the
okay,
And this being eligible for the National Register, clearly that's that's a
right. Well,
official
right.
opinion.
It's,
Yeah.
it should carry weight in our assessment, is that we've gotten that information from the State Historic Commission. So, so back to, so here's our choice, Campanile or pole.
Mhm.
And for the, purposes of discussion, let's just work with the poll for a minute and say, what about that? Is that a gate or a fence? That's a fence.
Fencing.
And it's a white picket fence. And so I would prefer not to see a white picket fence. I think that's not really in keeping with I mean, I guess it's residential in nature, but it doesn't, I think it brings the eye too much down that road. I realize that there's a lot of, and this isn't I know this is the planning board's purview, but I would be interested to see a landscaping plan and an access that did have that left a little bit more
Natural.
landscape than even though that's not attractive landscaping, but it's screening along the roadway, if that's at all possible. And my recommendation would be to make the fence out of, cedar or some other wood that would age naturally. I don't think it doesn't need this, it's not a security fence so much. It's just containing the equipment. The generator is where are we on the generator output? Is that
Information
compliant?
still not supplied to be determined.
Okay.
It's something that was addressed by the planning board
Right.
at the initial review last week, and then also by Cityscape,
Right.
our wireless consultants in their report. So
Okay.
that information has been requested and is still
Okay.
pending.
All right. So that's pending. But I think maybe the board should just look at the tower and look at the Campanile, and people may choose the Campanile. I'm not, I don't want to imply that I know what this board thinks, because I was not on the board when it approved this version of it. I was on the planning board that denied the site plan.
It's interesting because I don't remember, gosh, I really don't remember that
Mhm.
rendering.
Mhm.
And it seems more imposing. I remember more of
Mhm.
an elevation that was shown to us.
Mhm.
And now seeing it that way, it does overpower this structure.
Mhm.
I mean, my sister was married in this little chapel, and I have like a
Mhm.
close sort of connection to it. And but you can't unsee that monopole. I just was wondering why from 50 feet to 70 feet? Is that something that we can?
The applicant can probably.
I could
speak
explain
to
it, but
that.
yeah, the applicant can probably explain that better.
well-
And they did so last week in front of the
Yeah.
planning board, because that exact question was asked.
Right. We'll give the applicant a chance. I just wanted to
Okay.
sort of narrow the discussion to the two options, so that we're clear on what we're looking at.
And also, just to be clear, although let me just center this a little. It's sort of de facto is that choice, this or that. But really what's been put in front of you is its own standalone application, also the result of a settlement agreement. So it's sort of, just like any other application, it's approve or deny what's in front of you, which is the poll. But just know that the result of the denial will be
Yes,
this.
will be that.
So-
Okay. Thank you for
It's a somewhat,
clarifying that. Yes,
academic.
it's not right. It's not a clear cut thing, but we're looking, they're making application for the poll. If we choose the poll, that's fine. We go forward. If we deny the poll, we get the Campanile.
What year did the board approve this Campanile? I don't think I was on the board.
I don't know.
2019?
long time
Okay, so I wasn't on the board. Frank wasn't on the board. You weren't on the board. Diane and Esperanza were on the board. Okay. So I don't ever remember seeing this.
It may have even been earlier than that, but I don't
It
recall.
was a while ago. The litigation has been going on for quite some time.
Yeah, I think it might be 2015 because
Well, I wasn't on the board then,
right. Well, that's why I'm saying,
but for ARB.
yeah.
that's
Well,
what she
still,
was asking.
I don't, if you don't remember it, seems like something you would remember.
I do
Yeah,
remember
Yeah.
the review.
Right.
Just it's
Right.
not 2015 because I wasn't serving
Well,
on
I
the
think
board
it
then.
started in 20, it came before Forester site, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Here we are. What are we going to do? Do we like the poll? What do
No.
we think about the poll?
What
No.
are we going to do?
I mean, I think it's odd that this thing has been in the works 7 or 8 years, and now we're forced with a decision that in the future, it'd be easier to tear one down than the other
Right,
when
that
neither
that's
have
the
ever been built.
criteria.
And I don't think either are going to come down in our lifetime. So it's just sort of fascinating to me that we would think about the destruction being easier on a ugly pole than it would be on a sort of architectural tower. But
Well, I think applying our standards, which is for the, mass scale, harmony, what's in better harmony for the community. Where's my little list, my
Yeah,
cheat
well, it's
sheet?
kind of a rock and a hard place.
It is a
isn't
rock and a hard place. Yes, I agree with that.
Because neither are in harmony.
Right.
Um,
But those are the standards that we are.
And if there was a
supposed to be-
way by color or
Oh, here it is.
height or screening to mitigate the impact of the monopole, but it doesn't seem that that might be an option at 70 feet. Or 50 feet for that matter, but 70 feet is even
Okay.
harder.
Style, scale, materials, mass, line, color, detail, or placement upon the property or proposed buildings or structures. Now, I understand that placement on the property is something that's been sacrificed as part of the settlement, right, Eric?
I'm sorry to say that again.
Placement on the property has been
Yeah, that's
surrendered
part of the
as
settlement
part of the
agreement.
settlement.
You know, again, this is something the applicant's representative can
Right.
speak to more, but my understanding is that they are open to, minor changes and mitigation measures that might soften the impact.
Mhm.
But in general, the submission package that the ARB received is what you will be voting on and deciding on.
Right, I'm just reviewing assurance of harmony for the board in terms of these two objects, because it seems that's the compelling assessment, what's going to drive our assessment, which is scale, materials, mass, line, color, detail, or placement upon the property, except that we're not going to use that, proposed buildings, relation to the spaces between buildings or the natural character of the landscape, or because of lack of provision for balance between the proposed location and design of structures and adjacent open areas or adjacent existing structures, whether on or off the lot or site in question. Are we abandoning that last bit too because it's about structures, or are we allowed to use that criteria?
I mean,
Because, oddly, on some level, the Campanile seems less
intrusive.
disruptive.
Yes.
And I'm disinclined to go against the advice of SHPO, but I also think that the landscape, there's going to be such disruption to the landscape to construct the pole.
My comment about the SHPO is that my recollection of the reading of it is it talks about the structure and the building, but it doesn't take into consideration the community. Okay, it's looking at the building as a standalone structure, but it's not looking at the neighborhood and its relationship to what's being considered here.
No, I think that it's a historic, building that's located in Springs, which is the Springs Historic District. So it
isn't.
I think I know, but there's a historic district nearby.
There is a historic district nearby. I mean, and now that it's, I understand that it's been placed on the list subsequent to the initial application. I mean, that is good news. That's not a bad thing.
How
But
does that affect the secret process? So
I can't answer. The secret doesn't apply to us.
no. I'm just
Yeah, I don't
asking the
know.
question again.
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm losing my train of thought. I had someplace I was going. Just in terms of the historic nature of this church, and is the Campanile as designed more acceptable than the pole? And That's what we have to.
That's our choice.
That's our choice.
Is there a survey of how this looks from above, if, like whether it's Campanile or like how the lay of the land, in other
above?
words? Yeah.
Oh.
I can show you an aerial photograph.
Or
An aerial
Or
photograph.
that.
I mean, the other thing is not that this board, uses this as part of its analysis, but there are wetlands up in there. That's part of the reason that planning had problems with it, is that there are wetlands up where the pole is proposed, not so with the Campanile.
That's correct.
And how does that play into that?
Well, it already received the necessary relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Campanile, so.
Okay.
I think our decision is just
For the Campanile,
black
not
or
the
white.
Mon.
Is the
Yeah,
mono,
the pole does not require any wetland setback relief. It's situated in the center of the property where it's outside of not only the jurisdiction of the wetlands, but also the fall zones of the property boundary. So it doesn't require any dimensional relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals or any other relief from the zoning board.
Did the owner of the property express a preference?
I want to hear from.
No.
Because that might be compelling. Okay, I think that was helpful. Kelly, or I'm sorry, is the applicant Matt? Is your name Matt?
Yes.
Do I remember you correctly as Matt?
3 years ago.
Yes, okay. Hi, Matt. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Sure. If you'd like to
Yeah, I'd be
say
happy
a few
to.
words, would just give your last name for the record.
Sure. Matt Fitzgerald with Phillips Lytle on behalf of New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, AT&T.
Thank you.
So a couple of things I want to just quickly touch on. One are some updates since our planning board meeting. The planning board asked AT&T to consider a couple of mitigation options that I think are relevant to this board's considerations. One, there was a comment that the lighting that was currently proposed, which is just a work light that is activated whenever somebody's actually on site, if they're on site at night doing emergency maintenance. There was a request that it be changed from a floodlight to downward facing dark sky compliant lighting, which, although we don't have the updated plans yet, we're happy to do that. That's not an issue at all. With respect to the driveway, Eric, could you zoom in on the sight line? You already know. Yeah, exactly. So there were kind of two requests that the planning board made. One is that AT&T consider whether or not the driveway can be curved.
Yes.
To kind of provide more screening on all sides. We're looking into it and we're having somebody go out to mark the trees on site. There was an old tree survey done, but it was only focused on trees of a certain height and it didn't capture everything. So to be thorough, to see if it made sense, we wanted to go in and do that. And they're also going to drop an overlay of the turn radius, because the concern is from our end, if you do curve it in, you're actually going to end up taking out more trees because you're creating a longer driveway. So that's a work in progress. It's something we're working on at the request of the planning board. But what we can say is what we'd be happy to do is on either side of the driveway here, install landscaping, whether it's evergreens, which I believe is what we originally proposed, for the Campanile facility to buffer it from the neighbors on either side of the driveway. So that the only time you would really be looking directly at the facility, or at least the compound that houses the ground equipment, would be as if you were truly standing at the very end of the driveway. So that's something we're happy to do. With respect to the color of the fence, I don't think there's any strong feeling on AT&T's end about what color the fence is. We went with white board-on-board composite material. I will say it is a security fence. It's not just there for the aesthetics. We have had issues with vandalism in the past, so the fence is a functional fence. And then the color of the pole is currently brown. Board members who recall the brush dump application back in 2020 or so recall that we also proposed that tower to be brown, and then ultimately it was decided, you know what, it would be better if it was just the galvanized steel color. It'll blend in better. If that's the preference of this board, we'd be happy to go with that as well. It doesn't really make a difference to AT&T. If it makes the board happy, we're happy to change that. I want to clarify the conversations that were had with SHPO. So following the determination of eligibility, AT&T reached out to the State Historic Preservation Office to get the ball rolling on the process you work through as a part of the FCC licensing requirements under NEPA. So the way that cell towers are governed under NEPA for historic review at the FCC level, at the federal level, is through what's called a nationwide programmatic agreement, which is between the FCC and the State Historic Preservation Offices of all 50 states. And what's referenced in the letter is the preparation of a memorandum of agreement which is just a draft letter. You may have heard it in other historic contexts, a letter of resolution, a programmatic agreement, things like that. And what that agreement in draft form says is that AT&T is going to apply for this facility, the pole, and if it gets denied, we will instead build the Campanile. The FCC didn't want to move forward with finalizing it just because they said, well, why don't you see what the town actually wants you to build? And then we'll do a simpler memorandum of agreement that only addresses the remaining option. So we got all the way through that process with the State Historic Preservation Office, and then it just is on hold with the FCC. But what came out of those discussions with the State Historic Preservation Office were kind of two related but distinct concerns. One concern was with respect to the construction and decommissioning. As Eric indicated, it's not that it's impossible to decommission the Campanile design, but it is located in very close proximity to the chapel, and the decommissioning would presumably have some impact on the day-to-day visitors to the chapel, the aesthetics of the chapel, whereas this is offset. Now, that was the concern. That wasn't something obviously we raised. That was something that was raised by the State Historic Preservation Office. The other concern that I think is probably more relevant to this board's consideration is their concern with respect to false architectural history. SHPO's concern is that this is now a structure that is eligible for listing as a historic structure. If you put the Campanile back there, their reasoning goes, you are taking something that is not historic, the Campanile, and making it look like it is. And it creates this false architectural history that somebody driving by would think that it could blend in, and therefore would be deceived, and it would actually diminish the historic nature of the chapel for that reason. That's the other reason why the State Historic Preservation Office prefers the monopole design, is because it's offset, it's clearly distinct from the chapel. You look at it and you know, okay, that's not a part of the historic structure, which from SHPO's perspective is a benefit because it maintains the historic nature of the chapel itself. There's no confusion from that. So I just wanted to, these conversations took several months with SHPO, so that's one of the reasons why post-settlement agreement, there was the delay in this application. So I just wanted to run through that because those were the conversations that were had. As Eric said, we view this as a standalone application, right? It's for the 70-foot pole and you approve or deny it. Obviously, you understand that a denial results in the construction of the Campanile. There were a couple of questions with respect to the height. This is summarized in the RF materials, but as you see when you look at this, the monopole design is located in the woods to the south of the chapel and is immediately surrounded on almost all sides by relatively tall trees, whereas the Campanile facility is more offset from the surrounding tree line. And so in order to clear the tree line for the monopole, you have to go up. The other component of the design that requires you to go up is that if you look at it, as Eric noted, it's two different sectors of AT&T's antennas. And the reason that there's two different sectors is so that they can be flush mounted. They're much tighter to the tower here than you might see in a traditional design, whether it's the brush dump facility or most monopoles where the antennas are jutting off from the tower by several feet in most cases.
Out the window.
Right, yeah, you look no further than right out there for a good example
lovely
of that.
example, yes.
So one thing I'll say is with respect to, as Eric pointed out, one of the advantages of this design is, as it currently stands, it requires no relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals. It requires no relief from the Department of Environmental Conservation because this design is located further away from the wetlands. The wetlands are located to the north of this property. They are the woods here are not wetlands. I just want to be very clear on that. There's wetlands located to the north across that common driveway that Eric referenced. That property is all wetlands. The Campanile is much closer to those wetlands than the pole is.
1 minute, Matt. Would it be possible, Eric, to pull up a site plan to show folks where the wetlands are and what the difference is between if the Campanile is installed versus
screen share for a second so I can adjust the visual.
So Matt, who pays for the construction of either of these structures?
It's AT&T.
And is one much more expensive than the other?
I have not seen the quotes, but I would suspect that the Campanile, in terms of both its construction as well as its maintenance, to that point, it's going to be a more, I don't have a maintenance plan, but it's going to be more intensive to maintain,
right.
Which is another benefit of the monopole design from our perspective.
Okay. And my experience is this church is rarely used. I think it's open.
Summertime.
It's a Christmas Eve service and a summer service. So for several months, many months out of the year, it's not used at all.
Yeah, so there wouldn't be
There wouldn't be anyone
figure
in
out
there.
a way
That,
to-
yeah, that if you demolish the Campanile, there wouldn't be necessarily people in there because most of the year it's not used.
It's so hypothetical in terms of the decommissioning. It's hard.
I know it's that's
Just enlarge that a little, because I think people might benefit from understanding the shared driveway. He is, poor man. He's, Eric, could you
Yeah, I
just,
just want to,
could you-
give point of reference here.
okay,
This is Old Stone Highway, so this is actually north as you're looking. This is essentially the chapel building right here. They're proposing offset basically to the center of the property, the equipment compound and the monopole. The Campanile structure would have been roughly in this location here. And then this jagged line that you see here is the wetland boundary.
and where's, and the shared drive, can you just point out the shared drive
Shared drive
for
is
access?
right.
Yes, that, and there are residences all to the right of that shared drive, just so people have an understanding of, you know. Okay, sorry, Matt, thanks. I just wanted to, have people get a visual.
Not a problem at all. So what I would say is AT&T has worked on, I think the Campanile design was first raised by the ARB in 2015, which I think was your point. And that was the design that was pursued. The planning board ultimately denied that design. And as a result, the litigation commenced, and here we are proposing this alternative facility, which again, as a standalone application, we think with the mitigation we're proposing is approvable by this board and it's appropriate to approve. As Eric indicated, I don't think, while you of course understand that a denial would result in the construction of the Campanile, I don't think under the town code and under the structure of the settlement agreement, the analysis is which one do we prefer more. You come to a standalone decision on the 70-foot pole design, and then from there, what happens. I would submit if the board has any particular concerns about the 70-foot pole design, for example, if you have suggestions on the color, the fencing, the landscaping that we're proposing, we're happy to implement those. Although not necessarily bound to under the settlement agreement, we're committed to working with the town to resolve the significant gap in coverage in the vicinity of the site. And the way we'd like to do so at this point is through the 70-foot pole design that we've applied for.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. Was a landscaping plan submitted? Is that, these are just amendments that you've made since when?
Since last week, Wednesday?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So we originally weren't going to propose any because of the existing vegetation and whatnot.
Right.
Following the meeting with the planning board, we're preparing.
Okay.
I don't know.
And also you're going to do a tree survey to see if
Right.
possibly curving it might be, because it's a short distance. It's not a very long.
It's a short distance,
Yeah.
but because it's so short, that's where you get into the turn
No,
radius
I
issue.
understand. I understand.
So,
Because these are trucks that have to access it. I get it.
And I think the denser vegetation does the board mind if I walk up to the
Not at all,
screen here? Okay.
please.
So there's an adjoining residence here, and the denser vegetation tends to be in this swath of
Right.
the property over here.
Right.
So if we curve in any way,
Yeah,
it's going to be more visible to this property over here. Again,
Uh-huh.
Eric was right. The Campanile was proposed to be located right
yes,
here,
it's further back, right.
closer to this property than
Yeah.
the pole design.
And there were fall zone issues, as I recall, with that to some of the properties to the,
Yeah, the Campanile
North.
required,
Yeah.
even under the new code,
yeah.
would have required, would the Campanile be subject to a renewed application, which it wouldn't be, but it would certainly, even under the new code, be subject to approval from the ZBA due to proximity to wetlands as well as the pyramid lot requirements. So we're too close to, the structure is too high and too close to the adjoining property lines and whatnot. So the pole requires no relief from the ZBA or from the DEC, and it's the preferred design of the State Historic Preservation
Right.
Office. as
And
well.
it's actually the application before us.
And it's actually the application before you, that's right.
Okay.
And is there a preference by the neighbors who are on this driveway for what the neighbors think?
They want nothing.
Of course they do, but if then that's not an option, what's the next option?
What does
I-
the owner of the property want?
They want
The
something.
church wants it
They don't care.
They
They
want
want
the money.
something.
They
They want the money. That's what they want.
Yeah.
They want the income.
to pay.
That's why they're doing it.
They're not before us. We can't speculate on.
Right, but
Our conversations with them is they would like to see the 70-foot pole design approved so that things can move forward. That was the last conversation we had.
The
with
church.
them.
Thank you.
The
Yeah.
church, that's right.
I mean, my general sense is that with the, Frank, did you have a question for Matt?
So you're telling us that St. Luke's prefers the option of the standalone tower Why isn't anyone from St. Luke's here to
Well,
tell us that, as
Because,
opposed to the Campanile? I mean, I'm just a little surprised that given all of the resources that they had spent and time to come up with a Campanile, that
well,
they would
yeah, no.
now prefer to not have
That's
it.
not the
No,
church that has come up with that. This is the,
Right. I just want to be really
Wireless.
clear that the church has put it, the resources expended were all AT&T's, right? The
Yes.
designs, the applications, the hearings. I believe the church, representatives from the church have attended various public hearings before the planning board and zoning board of appeals, but they don't typically come to the workshop session. It's an unnecessary burden for them to, so we haven't,
Yeah,
they haven't typically attended
I don't think
those.
that addresses, thank you for that explanation. They're not, it's kind of out of their hands.
Well, it's actually a
Yeah.
very important point, because when it does come to, there's, we approve things architecturally from the architectural review, but we don't approve every nail, every board, every
Right.
single tiny detail to execute it. So who is actually overseeing the construction? of
AT&T, the AT&T is doing this whole thing. I mean, what happens a lot of the time, forgive me, but if there, there are these coverage gaps, the federal law supersedes our municipal law. And when coverage gaps are exhibited in certain areas and the wireless companies want to come in and put in a tower, they look around for people that might want to
Mhm.
have a tower. So a church, that needs money, and church steeples were some of the original tower locations, which had a benefit because they would go up into the steeple, you couldn't see it, and then the church got some money and
like
everybody
the
was
one in
happy.
Montauk.
Yeah, but I'm just, but it's
As an
in a yes, in a good, so anyway, so the coverage gap was discovered, years ago, and this was proposed. St. Luke's was happy about it. I mean, they have a new rector now. I mean, this has been going on for a really long time, and they did come in and in the beginning and say, we'd like this, would you let us have this? It's been a long road, but the bottom line is the design is going to be done by AT&T. AT&T is going to construct it, they're going to build it, and I assume they'll maintain it. I mean, it's because it's basically a cell tower. That Campanile is a cell tower. They're disguising it to look kind of like a church structure.
Right.
And what we're hearing from SHPO is, which it carries weight with me, it's not historically accurate to the building. It gives a misapprehension of what was on that site. And, they don't like it. I think it looks better than the tower. I get that.
So do I.
I think it looks better than the tower, but I'm not sure if I'm doing my job as someone that's supposed to be assessing the historic accuracy of these things, if that's the kind of, if they were going to build a Campanile, if that would be the one I would recommend. But that's not in front of us right now. Part of where we're hamstrung is that this all happened before you were on the board.
I understand the
and-
background of it.
Right, but if we deny the poll,
We
the
got- I know
Campanile
that.
goes in,
I
and
know that.
we have no,
It's just odd the owner is not here to, I mean, it's odd, this is a project that has no owner.
But
AT&T is telling us.
AT&T is the
Well,
owner,
but it's on the premises of the church.
and they're the landlord.
Right, okay. So-
They're the
And
landlord.
just,
So,
But I just wanted to say, Kathy, many churches out here have had numerous additions. The Jewish Center on Woods Lane
Right.
has a very modern addition attached to a turn-of-the-century mansion. St. Luke's itself is a 1912 church with a massive 1990 addition to the back of it. So additions to churches here don't always conform with the original
Right,
architecture.
those are in the village. They're not in the
But they're in
town.
the neighborhood. They're
I understand, but I'm saying, the village is a different process. I'm I'm just,
Okay, well, why don't we,
yeah, I
Hold
don't
the
know that it
doors.
matters that much is that the landowner is not here because they don't really have any say over this portion of it. This is up to AT&T. They own it.
Understood,
Yeah.
but it does frighten me a bit then. Oh, so I'm seeing a rendering. Where are the architectural detail drawings that I would expect because we're talking about how to treat a fence? Are we going to put planting in front of the gate? So
Yeah,
this,
could we pull that part
big-
up again, please?
so what are the details of this Campanile?
and what's it made out
Well,
of?
we don't.
Not considering
is this
the
that-
wood?
Campanile
Is
right
it
now.
Here's the thing
PVC?
is, we're not, this is the infuriating part of our job tonight is we are not, the application before us is the poll.
Okay, but
If we accept the poll,
But-
everything, if we reject the poll, the Campanile goes in and we don't get any say over the rest of the
And
Campanile.
I would mind the board that if it is denied, you have to give a specific section of the code basis.
Okay,
for the
well, I'm
denial.
just,
Scaling
I'm
that.
trying to, Frank is asking where are the details for the Campanile? If our choice is we reject the poll and we get the Campanile, he'd like to know more about the Campanile. And I think that's a fair question. So,
Except
Right.
that we have no say over the Campanile because it's by default. So we don't have any say over its design.
which is the point I'm trying
Okay,
to make.
So then does AT&T have liberty to change the design? How they want to?
I assume it's the
I mean,
design
are
as
they-
was
could they
submitted and
just-
approved by this board at the onset, right?
Who's to
because-
say they're not going to just build it out of PVC and
Well, I don't,
Gothic
but,
facade
well,
is in
here's the question. Here's what I think. Here comes Kelly. Kelly is our outside attorney.
Say up to that because I have a feeling I'm going to be bouncing back and forth. But just
Hi.
to be clear, hi, good
how are you?
afternoon, everybody. Good, how are you? Just so everybody's clear, the settlement agreement provides that if the proposal, the 70-foot monopole does not receive the required approvals from all of the boards that are involved, which would be the ARB, obviously, and planning, that they would get the application that was denied. So that would be conforming with the exact application that was submitted at the time with all of the specifications as they were submitted at the time. So they can't just throw
Right.
up a barn. They
Right.
would have to follow,
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
but we're not going to be open to negotiating it. And to this board's point, it's certainly, I understand the question and I do think it's relevant, and certainly I'm sure either Matt or Eric can speak about some of the specifics of that, of those details. Not that we're able to negotiate those details now, but if you're going to make a determination on whether or not to approve this poll, knowing full well that if it is not approved, you're going to be having exactly what was presented previously with the Campanile, and you want to know exactly what that involves in order to make the determination, that's fair, and that's something we can definitely speak about. But I think
Right.
that covered what I wanted to say, but if
Right.
anybody has any.
Well, that's what I was saying. With the original application was approved by this board for the Campanile. If the planning board had approved that, the Campanile would be in.
Okay.
So there was an application with
So it
details.
was
but it was
architecturally blessed by the previous.
by the prior, this
Okay.
board, which,
Okay.
approved it.
which must have
And-
been Peter Gumpel.
Yes, that's
They did.
right.
So does that mean that design is what must be built? That AT&T does not have the liberty to
Yes,
change that?
Correct,
design?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's reassuring.
If we deny the poll, it just reverts to the original approval.
And just for one last thing while I'm up here, just to kind of give everybody who might not have been on the board, and Kathy, obviously, I know you were in a different seat
Okay.
when we went through through the initial procedure. Many different, just so everybody understands, many different alternatives were discussed, explored with respect to this site. There was the determination of the gap in coverage. I think Matt went through this with the planning board the other day. There were 22 different variations on a theme, which were explored, different sites, extending the existing bell tower, putting the standalone Campanile monopoles in different sites on the property. And this was all part of the negotiated agreement to come to this specific site and this specific height monopole. So it wasn't just pulled out of thin air. It was all a result of negotiations and agreement that this gave AT&T the coverage objectives it needed, that it was the least impactful in terms of what the town was looking to do. And that is how we arrived at this particular application, just,
Okay.
One question I have, not for you so much, Kelly, but just if this board this evening chooses to approve the poll, let's just say, does that influence the planning board in any way? I mean, we've been trying not to make approvals in isolation of these other boards. Eric, can you?
Yeah, well, the planning board already said as a result of the initial evaluation or initial review that they favored the monopole
Okay.
design. So they are moving forward with that. They directed the planning department, myself, to prepare an EAF parts 2 and 3 under SECRA for a negative declaration. So that is scheduled to be in front of them next Wednesday.
Right.
At which time they'll also schedule a public hearing. So basically, everything that they've done to this point indicates that they're willing to move forward with this design. Obviously, that doesn't mean that they've approved anything yet.
I understand, yeah.
But
But
so
I just don't want to, because this is
you're-
what happened last time, really. It's what happened with the Campanile to begin with, is the ARB approved it and the planning said no.
Yeah,
But
I
we're
don't
not
think-
in that position, I guess, here now, right?
I don't think any decision that either board necessitates a decision one way or the other by the other board. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, I don't want to
The
hamstring.
board previously, the ARB denied there was an application that came, and then the chairman of the board at the time drew the design that was denied by the planning board.
the application for the Campanile that was denied by the planning board was approved by the architectural.
Correct.
That happened at the meeting, though, the design. He designed it on a napkin during the meeting.
I don't know that for sure,
I don't
but
remember that. I wasn't at that
Yeah.
ARB meeting, but,
I'm
okay.
wondering if there's an original application that they denied, or if it was just comments that went to the planning board. It was then.
the original proposal or design that was submitted to both the ARB and the planning board involved modifying the actual church steeple, increasing it in height. There were multiple work sessions in front of both
No, I
boards that
remember,
strayed
yeah.
the design away
It's
from
like a
that
rocket ship,
proposal.
Yeah. Mhm.
So
There wasn't an actual vote in denial by the ARB of that, right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, do we have, I mean, to Frank's
We give
point, do
comments.
we have the plans for the Campanile? I mean, because it
Yes.
seems like if that's going to influence our decision, which is, then we should have those.
Well,
Do we?
I have them. I just showed you the renderings at the beginning. So then that was the full submission package
Yeah,
plan.
okay. And that was what was approved, right? Not the back of the napkin drawing.
Nope.
Okay.
What became the?
Yeah, I know. It was sort of, yeah.
So
it was
Eric,
sort
if
of-
we deny this tonight and it goes to the Campanile, what happens to the planning board and the planning department? Where do you go?
Well, essentially, it would become moot.
That you basically, if you deny the application, that takes it away from the planning board because all the boards have to approve.
Well, this is my point. That was why I was asking that question.
Okay.
So the ZBA, so if we deny it, the Campanile goes before the ZBA.
No, the ZBA has nothing to, oh,
So there are no reviews?
planning board.
If we
Yeah.
deny this and it goes to the Campanile, are there any more reviews?
No.
No.
The ZBA already
A or B.
approved this
A building
application.
permit, but not in front of the ARB or the planning board or the zoning board.
Right.
So it's on an automatic trail to get built,
Yeah,
Yes.
the Campanile, if we deny.
Right.
Yes.
correct.
So why don't, we've on this an hour.
Right.
Let's vote.
And keep in mind that under the town code right now, although this does, you still are afforded the authority to approve or deny, but under the code, your standards are restricted to design features. So,
Right.
but just keep that in mind. So
Yes,
Okay.
whether
Which is
you
what we
decide to approve or deny, it should
Yes.
be based on the design of this facility.
right, which is why we were discussing that at the beginning, because that's really what, and why I reviewed the harmony issues. So anyway, okay. Well, what do you think?
I choose not brown. That's usually, I think, too
Not
dark.
brown.
Yeah.
And
They're-
What do you
well,
think?
I-
Not color. What do you think about? the
before you go
tower or the
around,
Campanile?
I don't
Oh,
mean
I'm
to
not-
silence
I'm not
anybody,
even
but just to
going to
aid
Campanile.
your decision-making process. Again, the planning board will be scheduling this for a public hearing. That process has not concluded. The way that when we had discussion with the applicant's representative, we envisioned that this would ultimately be, if it was going to be approved back in front of the ARB, I believe on April 27th, which would be after the hearing, the public hearing held by the planning board. So, you do have a member not present this evening. You are
Oh.
not compelled to act on this application at this time. Just letting you know
We are
that.
compelled?
We are
You
not.
are not compelled.
Okay, well, I like that.
No, after an hour of discussion.
Yeah. right.
Why don't we just poll the board to see where we are?
Well, I don't know what we're polling the board for. I think
To see if you were in favor of the tower or you're, or not. That's,
It's, am I correct in saying what is before us is to approve or deny the application?
the tower, yes.
Correct.
Tower,
And that's the
That's it.
tower.
right.
And we have the power to deny this tonight, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would recommend we don't do that.
Why not?
Set for a public hearing
sorry,
in the,
with-
the
Because,
planning board.
because
And
the planning board is going to have a public hearing and that could inform some of our decisions.
In other words, we can wait until.
that's up
We
to
can
the-
wait. We can hold it. We don't have to decide tonight. And we can wait till we have a 5-member board.
And the
That would be my
the planning
advice.
board has asked for the applicants to consider some changes in mitigation, plantings. Again, that more curvilinear
Yeah,
road.
I think,
Obviously, that's not going to significantly impact the
right.
appearance of the facility, but those are still elements that, you know, the plans that you have in front of you tonight have
Right.
not been amended to reflect those comments of the planning board. So just throwing that out there for
So
you.
maybe,
We'd have a new.
Okay, I'd like to table it. Excuse me?
I have it on the next agenda, so it'll be the week after the planning board.
The
You just put it, yeah.
23rd?
Yeah.
All right, I'd like to table it. I think people might need more time to think about this.
Can I make one request as the applicant? To the extent the board has any comments on things like we heard on the fence or on the color of the pole, just so that the planning board has that additional feedback from the board. So
Well, I'm the rep for this, and I did start my comments by saying I don't think it should be white.
Okay.
I recommended it should be cedar or another natural wood that would age, and, you know, much the same way the tower went from brown to gray,
Sure.
just so it'll blend in with the wooded area there. And then if there's any other landscaping that you can do to help, you know, buffer that view from the road. I know you offered the evergreens up the drive, which I think would be helpful. But you might be able to put something in front of the fence too, even though I don't think we're supposed to ask you for that. But you may hear that from planning anyway. But that would be those would be my comments.
do you have a preference on brown versus the just traditional galvanized steel for the color of the pole?
Oh, that's where you were starting. Poor Mooney. Yeah, no, I think brown is going to look weird in the winter. Isn't that your sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's
Right?
in the past. we
the
had-
one up on Northwest Road actually looks
That's the one that, yeah, the last,
as
that's
good
the
as it
most
can.
recent one.
that one also has a straight direct driveway, like a freeway up to it too.
Right,
Right.
So-
which makes it very visible.
Which makes it very.
Yeah, that one could have had,
Industrial.
but that was another settlement again.
Yeah,
you know, we
exactly.
Keep getting sued on these things and,
Okay,
anyway,
let's go on.
Thank you very much.
good. All right, thank you very much. All right. Okay, wow. Okay, good thing Kim didn't come tonight. We're on to our second application, Ocean Surf, care of Lori Wiltshire. Sorry, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-50-1-27.1. This is also mine. And I have to find my paper here. I've gotten, oh, this is what I'm confusing myself. Okay. Okay. All right. So this is for, can we bring those photos up,
working on it.
please? And we're going to switch around in the agenda. I'm going to switch 4 with 3 and 4, so that LPS can get in and out. I don't know who's here. Ah, hi.
Lori's actually just walking in the door.
Oh, okay. Well, you have 2 on, but we have one application in between, and I thought rather than make you wait, we'd bundle you up. Okay, so this is an application for to replace. If you could just cruise through these. This is Ocean Surf, which is a hotel in Montauk. It's on South Emerson Avenue. It fronts the ocean, and these are you could go to the next one, please, Eric. This gives you sort of the panoramic view of the building. And you can, okay, so if you'd hold there for just 1 second, this fencing and retaining wall is on the west end of the property, and it's right up on the property line. And so this area, the fencing that's along the southern it's got a southern exposure there, and then the western side are all being proposed to be replaced with mahogany. If you could go forward again, that we don't need, I don't think, but we may have to go back to it. Okay, keep going, please.
That's the only ones that I have on that, but let me
Oh, there should be more photos of the.
I have 6 of them.
Okay. Oh, you know what? They're from the application. The applicant supplied some.
Okay, I have
some
those.
good photographs. Yeah, those were not mine. There we go. Okay, so that's that white. We saw that white trellis-like fencing above the white. So this is what they're proposing there.
Is it a V?
It's not. I don't think it's supposed to be a V. I think they just cut and pasted something in there and it made it look weird. We can ask them about it.
So is the brick changing as well? The retaining wall is also changing?
The facade of the changing wall from what for the facade of the wall is going from white brick to this stone,
Like
which is Armor Tech.
Armored, I was gonna
Yeah.
say Cambridge, one of those.
That's
things.
exactly what it is. Sigma Classic wall stones from Cambridge Armor Tech. Both walls are going to be topped with mahogany 2x4 slats on the flat. So, and replace the fencing in also. So this is, if you could just advance through there. Yeah, that's the existing. And that's proposed. I'm right in assuming that weird little V shape in there is just a cut and paste thingy, right? Yeah. Okay, this is the eastern wall as it exists, and it's dilapidated. It's falling apart. There are some other photos of it. That's proposed with that Armor Tech again with these slats on top of it. Yeah, that's the existing wall. So it's there's some logs. Yeah, it's falling down. I mean, the ocean, I couldn't access it from there. There just wasn't any way to get down. But apparently that house, that's a residence next door. And I guess there's some concern about David had some concerns about that residential property and where these two structures are meeting, that retaining whatever that mound or berm is to the east of this wall. If that belongs to that other property owner, it could be a problem. Okay, you could keep scrolling if you would, please. Yeah, so this is that wall as you look down the street, where it meets the road and the parking area, and that's looking directly into the bay. You can, if you could walk straight back there, you'd end up at the ocean. So you can see that it needs replacement. Now, this is the one, and I failed to measure this, which I apologize for, but this triangular piece that is part of the railing on the right side of the picture here, there's no measurement on this, but I failed to measure the existing myself, but it's got to be, I don't know, 12 feet or something. It's really high. And I'm wondering about the height of all of these things, if they're, because the application says replace in place, but I don't know if there had been approvals for some of these things, because I think they're over the permitted height. But we'll let Lori tell us. I think that's it. Yeah, that's the existing.
Oh, that's
Because it's the
existing.
stair going up.
Yeah, it's a
that
stairwell.
triangular wall is their wall. It's not the next building.
Correct. So the walls are right on our property line.
Right.
And all that rock mess on the neighbor
Yeah.
residential, that's their mess. That's not our mess.
Right.
Our mess is causing our
It's
retaining wall.
falling into you. Yeah, boy,
Correct.
that's a pain in the neck.
But when we replace it, it'll firm it up.
Right.
But all this is a pre-existing this thing is pre-existing, and I'm sure that whatever fences and walls and things here have been like this for a very long time.
Right. I just don't know if they ever had approvals. I think that's what I'm trying to figure out. And because it is unusual, that very tall fence there. Do you have a dimension for that by any chance? From up at the
Don't
top of the
actually know.
railing? Yeah, because I didn't measure it either. That
No.
was my bad. But
Well,
Go straight across, and he said he probably would like it better if it That's the west.
No, I understand because that's how it exists now, but
So it must be
There's no
about, if it's
dimension
62
there.
inches on the bottom, it's got to be
yeah,
half, so it's got to be about 30 more inches
well, I'm
tall.
thinking it's 10 or 12,
So it's 9 feet
It's
tall. Yeah,
or
so,
maybe 10.
yeah.
At the
Is that
tallest.
verified 62 inches?
We measured that in the field.
What's that?
It was measured in the field. It looks like 4 feet of lattice on top of about a foot and a half of some sort of wood.
Yeah.
It just seems strange that if that's 5 feet high, then the top of the triangle must be about 8 feet,
8 feet. or
which
nine.
would mean, is there a full story under that deck? Then it's like,
Yeah, but that is,
It's the neighbors.
that's the.
That's the
yeah, but
neighbors,
yeah,
but
but you're
then-
using it as a, yeah.
Like a privacy screening, yeah.
Well, I
I
think Frank is
understand
just trying
that.
to
My
understand
point
the height
is
of it.
the
Yeah,
height of it appears to be higher than the deck of the
the first
um,
story.
Understood.
the
Yeah.
property above, so
Seems
is
to
that-
follow the railing. all the way
Yes,
up.
it does,
It
yeah.
does follow the
Is
railing.
that deck like 5 feet or 6 feet above grade, or is it like 9 feet?
I honestly do not.
Yeah, I don't know, and I didn't measure it. That's my
It's not our property,
failing.
no.
Yeah.
It's just there's something's not adding up.
But you said
Yeah.
they were okay with it being straight.
I think there's a hopeful.
Yes.
They thought the board would like it taller.
It's not 5 feet.
Could you just approach the mic so that, if you're going to talk about it, be happy. It's just that people can't hear, people who are watching at home can't hear you. when you're-
Originally, we talked about it going just to the end where it says the 44,
Right.
where it comes across. And then the applicants felt that you would prefer it to cover the white because it would not look as good if it stopped.
Yeah, it's peculiar in every aspect. I mean,
Also the neighbor? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Oh.
Yes, it's the neighbor's staircase, I believe.
so they're building the fence on the
And no,
neighbor's
it would be,
staircase?
it would be, there's a fence that goes up against the staircase because you can see it does follow a continuous line.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. But,
Maybe it
So
would-
the white fence is not attached to the staircase.
no, it's just next to it. But you can see the left handrail. You can see it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
right next to
But
it.
it's not our fence. We're putting a fence in front of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sticking up and we thought you wouldn't like that.
Oh, so that white fence stays.
But
Correct.
Because
it's, but
the
it's
neighbor's
flush.
fence.
says replace in place
Yeah,
two.
but that's what I mean. If it's
walls.
if it's
Both
their
retaining walls,
white
replace in place
painted
fencing.
stockade and it's on your property line, I'm not quite sure I follow because it looks like it's flush with
And it
your
says
fencing.
replace in place in your application. So I understood you to be replacing that fencing with the
It
mahogany.
looks like that staircase is right up against the
It
property
does.
line
Yeah,
as
I
shown on the
think it's,
survey.
I think it's, the fence is on
It's on your,
property and the fence would be coming down and the new fence would be replacing it along there and it's up against their
But
staircase.
it's not your fence?
Which is what,
that's what.
no, I think it is.
I think it
is.
looks like
The
it.
fence
Oh,
on the
for heaven's
property
sakes.
and-
Well, we should know if it's your fence or not, shouldn't we?
Yeah,
I mean,
you see
isn't
this,
that sort of a basic?
You see right at the edge of the gravel here, this wooden white painted
Yes.
retaining wall or board.
Yes.
That seems to be indicated by this,
Yeah.
this red line wall.
Mhm.
And then you can see the staircase is right up to the turquoise edge of the property line.
Right.
So if I jump back there, basically that's that wall that you saw. And then it looks
Uh-huh.
like this fencing is situated right on the property
Yeah.
line between.
So that would indicate that it's,
Water, it actually turns onto their property, not, it encroaches onto ours. And then it turns onto their property.
well, if it's not, here's the problem though, Lori, we can't approve a fence that's not on your property. If it's not your fence, we can't,
Putting a fence in front of.
you're putting a fence in front of it.
On our
Okay.
property.
Okay, well, so you're putting in a new fence. You're not replacing a fence.
Correct.
Okay, well, this says replace the fence,
Well,
which
this-
is why I didn't understand this.
This
So-
particular portion is going to just be put up in front of their existing fence so that we have a theme.
Now that's clear. Now that's clear. The application did not say that, which was confusing.
So this whole fence is then someone else's. So at what point is that their fence or someone?
It's their fence.
Yeah.
Their-
So the
Well,
entire
Eric
thing
seemed to
is
think
their
it's
fence,
not.
Even though it's on their property.
It's not on the
Well, it's
property.
actually on the property line.
It's
right on the property line.
If it's on the property line,
So are you going to tear that fence down?
No, we can't. It's not ours.
It's on your property. So why
Exactly.
not tear it
On
down?
our property, further down the road, as you approach the water, we're not touching that fence. We're not
That's
doing
not what the
anything.
survey
That
indicates.
doesn't seem to be what the
The survey
survey.
indicates that
Pull up the survey.
it's on the property until right about the stairs.
Hmm.
Zoom it
We
in.
need to be, this is good this way. Okay, so keep going. Okay, so you see here, it comes like this, off of their property, onto our property,
Okay, wait,
and then
wait,
slide it down.
back up. Where are we on the survey? Is that the beach?
Yes,
that's the ocean.
This is the ocean.
The ocean at the bottom.
Yeah, well, which we didn't have access to any of this.
Stairs to the wall, to the beach.
Okay.
This is that fence continued along here, happens to be on our property until we get to here,
Where does
where
it
it's
show
on the
that?
property line, which is fine. And we're gonna be erecting our mahogany in front of that.
So that's the red line,
Lori,
Lori?
it-
Is that what you're indicating?
Yes.
So their fencing is on this property.
It is their fence and the fence is coming down and it is a direct replacement on the property line of their fence for the fence that's there.
But
So someone.
how can you replace your neighbor's fence? I'm,
No, the fence is their fence.
No, oh, sorry.
It is on their property. It is their fence. The fence is coming down and it's going to be a direct replacement of where that fence is on. their-
okay, I understand. This is becoming clearer now, but if you're
It's
generally
replacing,
speaking, when you say you're
mistake.
replacing something, it's something you own. And you're like, when you replace your car, you
Correct, the
replace your
fence is
car.
on their property.
You're not replacing your fence. You're building a fence to replace your neighbor's fence, which is
On
going
our
to be,
property.
please let me finish, because I'm so confused by this. I can't tell you. It says replace in place.
That is
Two-
correct. We
Two
were
retaining
mistaken.
walls,
Called the client.
both retaining walls top with it, replace in place fencing,
Correct.
replace in place fencing. It's not your fencing.
We just called the client.
I
It
just
is our
called for
fencing.
confirmation.
It is your fencing.
It is our.
My
fence.
Good
mistake.
God in heaven.
I know, so sorry.
Honestly,
It is our
So
fence.
sorry.
It's on our property and it's going to be replaced in place.
There are some other issues too that we talked about before. We need an authorization from the actual corporation.
We'll get that too.
Okay, and then you have the sign and planter and dumpster area.
no, we're going to, this is, he's telling it. No, it's an absurdity.
We'll be in touch with the town highway super.
Well,
They don't even know what they're doing.
he can make
okay.
a traffic analysis of that, but only the town board can, has the authority to allow you to install structures on town property.
Okay.
So we are.
Is that town property?
This is town right away.
Okay, all right, well, that's fine. We'll
You have
talk
it,
to the
right?
highway super. We'll talk to the town board.
You won't be able to get a CO from the building department with.
That was in place without something in place.
Yeah.
Understood.
So those might have to be removed.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to suggest for tonight. And sorry for all the confusion. Jean has actually been handling this all along and she had to leave, so I stepped in and I, just a little bit off. So what we really need to do is get these retaining walls replaced before they open, which is coming up in the immediate future. The parking lot will be used. So these two retaining walls are the most important thing to get accomplished tonight.
Okay, well, we can't do that because we don't have permission by the owner. This is the problem. We can't,
Well,
yeah, if, we'll try to get you on at the next meeting. If you can submit a complete application with the proper
you just want
information.
the
You got, yeah, we can't approve something,
managing agent, they're the managers.
but we don't have the document that where the owner says, I permit this person to act on my behalf.
Mhm.
Okay, so we don't know if the owner really knows anything about this. We could take your word for it, but that's not how the legal system works.
Mhm.
So we need that document. And then if you want to trim this back to just, proposing the retaining walls, we can do that.
And but what about the mahogany? Where's-
I can't, I think we've spent a lot of time on this already and I can't, I think we've got to move on. It's,
Hold the board on that?
no, I'm not going to do
I
that.
think the application has to be
Yeah,
accurate.
the
There's
accurate,
no
yeah,
sense
it's too
that this is
confusing.
accurate.
We're going to have to,
No,
it's not.
we can't debate this again and then say, oh, actually, that's actually not our. Until the facts are straight and you come to us knowing who owns what, then we can talk about it. But
Yeah.
We're not going to
I
spend
think
the
you
next
need to go back.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
It was my
discussing-
mistake. She called the owner while sitting here.
That's okay, but that's not
We
how
don't
we do
call
business
owners in the
here.
middle of
That's not how we do business
We
here,
don't.
okay?
I understand
So
that.
if you please just resubmit the proper paperwork, and if there are things that you can do to trim the application so that you can make it more expeditious, we'll be happy to get it on at our earliest convenience. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. And I'm putting in Neil Strahl ahead as a courtesy to you two. Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-126-1-14.42, 11 Southwood Court. Frank, this is yours.
Okay. You pull up the photos, please, Eric. Yep. Okay, this is an application to legalize existing or as-built wire and deer fencing at a residence on a quiet residential street off of Old Stone Highway in Amagansett. The street is marked as private as one enters into the subdivision, but I'm told by our planning person here that the street is not actually technically private and does not impact our review of this. The property is enclosed by deer fencing in the front side and rear sides and rear yards, and enclosed by a 6-foot stockade fence with a gate and pergola to the east. Additionally, there is a cattle gate with gate posts, but the gate leaf is not installed. That's not listed on this application. I'm not sure if this is if that was ever approved, but it is built. It should be noted that this is a stockade fence and gate within this fence, and the gate within the stockade fence appears to not appear in the survey. Also, the survey states that the deer fencing is 7 feet high, but the fencing poles exceed this height. Some poles in excess of 8 feet. On the street, there are 5 residences, and 2 of them appear to have fencing. This and the one across the street. The residence across the street appears to have deer fencing and a 4-foot high gate, but the gate posts themselves are quite tall. It's in the last photos. There are several issues with this, what I see with this application that I want to go through. Maybe we can start with this one. This is to the east of the house, this 6-foot stockade fence, which is marked on the survey as 7-foot high fence. But it's let me look at my field notes here. That is a 6-foot 1-inch stockade fence that I measured. The posts, if you go to the next page, you can see the posts. The posts are 6'4". The gate there is 5'6", but the pergola above it is 7 feet 11 inches.
Oh,
That's not on the survey. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay, so there's deer fencing right off the street, and I also want to note there's steps that are not even on, that appear to be part of this property, but is not within the property lines.
You're in the right of way.
Yeah. Seems that way.
Right.
Okay.
So let's go to the next page. Okay, so that's facing the street. So a question is, so we have some fence posts here. The fence here is 7 feet. The fence posts are anywhere from 7'1" to 8'2", depending on where you, as measured from grade. It's on top of a 2-foot retaining wall. So visually, it appears even taller than that. I don't know whether that qualifies as being built on a berm Because to me, it seems that this is not conforming to natural grade, which is fine if you have it's a retaining wall, or excuse me, a fieldstone wall. But I'm not sure if we can count the bottom of that fence as being at grade, because the fieldstone wall bumps it up. Next page. Those are that appears to be what either was or will be a gate. That one on the right is 5'11". The one on the left is 6'0.5".
Are they metal?
They're, metal, like Corten steel. Keep going down. Okay, here, which is to the right of the driveway, we have this gate. This gate it's not marked on the survey. I don't know if we need it to be marked on the survey. But it's not on the survey. The survey is dated December 21st. This looks like older than.
Yeah, just of last year, though, not that long
right?
ago. Yeah.
So I don't know why it wouldn't be here.
Yeah, it's only a couple months
It's kind of
old.
odd. It looks
Pathway.
older than 2 months, but it's not on the survey.
Right.
So that the gate itself is 6'3" high,
my
6'3" inches high. The posts are 6'7".
This is facing the street.
That's go back to the maybe the first slide.
First slide.
And you're saying it doesn't appear on
It's
the
not on the
survey.
survey.
Doesn't appear on survey.
Yeah.
It's just go to the first. Yeah, you can see it from the street right there.
Mhm, mhm.
So those steps
And
go to
those
that
steps
gate.
there are to access that gate, but they're in the right of way.
Right.
Okay.
That's most of it. I mean, there's deer fencing that goes around the back of the property that you can see on the survey. Keep going. That's on the side facing west. Keep going. That's within sort of the strange condition where that pole is technically, that pole that sits in front of the wall is actually 12 feet high.
I was going to say, that looks really tall.
Yeah. So that's 12 feet because it's like going from 0 to 5 feet.
Right.
And then we covered that. So there are a lot of things. I think the first place to start is the question is whether this survey is accurate.
Well, it would appear that it's not, from your observations, and thank you for that thorough review. Yeah, it's more complex than it would appear to be. So I guess.
So we have a few things here with the application for the gate for the fence. We have fence posts that are higher than 7 feet. So we consider the structure of the fence the top of the post, correct?
Yeah.
So the top of the fence posts are exceeding 8 feet in certain spots.
Right.
So they're exceeding 6, they are what they are. Another part of the fence is there's the 6'1" or 6'4" stockade fence. There's a pergola as part of that wooden fence that's over 7 feet tall.
It's almost 8 feet, right? Yeah.
On the front, in the front yard, we have a gate that's 6'7".
And not depicted on the survey.
Not depicted on the survey and not in the application.
Okay.
And then there are those 2 6-foot-high posts out of Corten steel that you can see. Yeah.
That would imply a gate, but there's no gate.
Correct.
Okay.
The trellis or pergola, is that in excess of 50 feet from the Like, is it in the side yard or is it in the backyard?
It's not, it's not measured, but presumably that's beyond 50 feet from the front yard, from the front lot line.
It's at least even with the front of the home, right? So the distance from the front of the home to the edge of the cul-de-sac is 79 feet. So
Okay.
in theory, it would be further than 50.
But it's in excess of 6 feet.
Still, yeah, that's, but isn't,
My question is if it's in the,
yeah, I understand. I thought it was, if that it's 6 feet as of right, that if it's beyond that, we need to approve it.
So if,
Right.
is that a pergola? And if that's not, I would think if that's not part of the fence, then it's a pergola, which becomes an accessory structure.
Right.
Which
Oh
needs
my
a
God.
it's attached to the
Connected
fence.
to the
It's attached though,
poles, to the
It's on the posts, right? Yeah.
part of the
Well, one
fence,
could argue that the fence attaches to the,
but they're attached to each other.
We've seen this before. We've treated pergolas like this as part of the fence, but they come under fence restrictions. And most of the time, the applicant removes them.
Okay.
Or lowers them so they can't
Lowers them
even
so
go
they can't.
underneath them.
But we've seen this show before.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there's a lot. Do you have anything for us, Larry?
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I don't, it looks to me like some work's been done since this application was made. So we have to go back and like find out what's going on
Yeah.
over there.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Frank. That was really helpful.
So incomplete.
Yeah. All right. And next up is Corey Rose Manson. Is that you? Thank you for your patience. Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-78-2-4.1. This is Diane's. We don't, I don't know what we're going to do with this. The member who was reviewing your application is absent. Should we what's the protocol here?
Well, I mean, the application is in everybody's file, right? And
Yes.
with
And
the-
I did
Yeah.
speak with her.
Okay,
also.
great. Well, then let's proceed. Would you like to come to the podium, Ms. Manson?
And Julie, I'm not sure, these are Diane's photos or they were, yeah.
Yeah, she had been out to take the photos, but she was too ill to come to the meeting today. So we'll just review it and then we'll ask you for any comments. Okay, thank you.
So we'll take a look at the photos and.
Yeah, do you want to cover it?
Yeah, I
Given that
mean,
you
I
spoke
can,
with her, that would
just
be
from what
helpful.
my understanding is there is some,
I'll just show you the survey just for
Mhm.
bearing. So if you look at it.
do you mind zooming in a little bit? Because we
Yeah,
can't
sorry about
see
that.
that.
So I believe the first photo starts from 16th Street, looking in towards the driveway. So I will switch over to those.
Piece of information.
Oh, okay. That's it?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to show you the survey. to show
Sorry, I
you
was
what
waiting. I was waiting for more from you.
Oh, sorry. I was waiting for you.
All right. So Member Benson said that there's fencing that it's built already, and it is enclosing an area where there's a hot tub atop of the decking. And the fencing she measured it at 10 feet above the deck floor. You're shaking your head no, from the ground. I asked her whether it was from the ground and she said it was from the deck. So that's I'm just telling you what she told me, that it was 10 feet.
It's like the ground.
Could be.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah.
She wasn't feeling well.
Mhm.
Now, it was drawn to our attention that the hot tub is in an area where it does not meet the setback. So my understanding is that we can't, and it's attached to this deck, which has the hot tub. So my understanding of this is that we can't approve a structure that is part of another structure that's not compliant.
Well, they had me build a fence around it. So
Who had you build a fence around?
Well, you had an email from Joe Palermo that
told you that you either have to go to the ZBA to get a setback variance for the hot tub or remove it. And so given that the hot tub is kind of closely linked to the retaining wall and the deck, it would kind of make the most sense, I think, if you were to decide if you wanted to go to the ZBA or remove the hot tub, because
I'm not removing the hot tub.
Or move it? Is that?
Be the
yeah.
you should
ZBA,
apply to the ZBA.
yeah, okay.
So I think that's where we are with this at this point. Without the,
And I will say, we'd be glad to help you out. I work for the planning department. If you come to our offices, we can help you out with the paperwork for applying for the variance.
Okay, can I make a statement?
of course, yes.
The reason this was done was when the house was built 20 years ago, it was built on an angle, the structure.
Right.
So the back of my deck is in everybody's windows.
Right.
And I live alone, so.
No, I
it's-
get it. Yeah, it's a
It's a privacy.
privacy
screen.
fence, sure.
If I had taken the opportunity to put it on the ground as a regular fence, it wouldn't have made any difference.
That's right. I understand. You needed to elevate it. Right. Right.
The reason. for-
No, that makes perfect sense. I'd probably done the same thing myself, but at this point, we just need the variance on the, for the,
Whatever.
and then we can take a look at the fence after that.
Alrighty,
Okay.
so you can help me?
I can't read lips.
No, there's no denial.
No.
There's no vote. It's incomplete. We shouldn't even, be entertaining it,
Really
frankly.
can't
Hold on
review
until
it.
Yeah.
the ZBA
We can't review it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for your patience and good luck. Yeah. Okay. Next up, James Frank, modification, Suffolk County Tax Note number 300-196-1-2.2, 11 Town Line Road. Mooney, this is you.
Yeah, I forgot I was up
Yeah,
next.
you even had one.
But is the applicant?
Is the applicant present?
Present?
I think it's
Is that you, sir?
Just come to our office. We'd be glad to help.
Consider zoning.
I suspect so.
So it's Suite 105.
Sure. He's been waiting patiently.
Yes, he has. He was here first, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I didn't. realize.
Okay. Yeah, we'll figure it out together. Sorry.
Thank you. Are you Mr. Frank?
Okay, yes. I'm
Welcome.
Kyle Ruse, Architectural Design.
Oh, you're Kyle Ruse.
The architect.
Hello, Kyle. It's nice to meet you. Thanks for coming.
I think we've only met by Zoom, perhaps. That's why.
Right.
Correct.
The way this works is the board member will review your application and then we'll ask you for any comments or questions, answer any questions you may have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So this is actually an application for a modification and I'm looking at the wrong document, pardon me. This one.
Going to try to get you the approved and then the proposed changes side by side.
Thank you.
Although we'll have to zoom in at some point, presumably, because I think that's tough to see.
Yes, please.
Still not getting the right paperwork here. Hold on.
So the layout on the top that you see is what was approved by the ARB. The one below is what they're proposing right now. And I suppose I'll zoom in on that one.
If you could, that would be,
And I do have all the photos in the file as well.
Right. It's just I have the original submission and I know there was a change following the memo from the planner. But in broad strokes, basically the modification primarily at this point is because there was a generator that was being proposed and it was removed, I think being relocated and it was removed from the scope of the application. But the main thing is that the pool house is proposed to be relocated. It's a 200 square foot pool house. And originally it was on the south side. Now it will be on the north side of the property. There was originally a 121 square foot pergola next to the pool house. That has been eliminated from the scope of the project, and there are now sort of side porches on each side of the pool house. Is that accurate? And those are at a total of 212 square feet. the pool and the spa were actually relocated and the pool enlarged. That's not in our purview. There is a change to the proposed shower enclosure, which was at 23 square feet. It was also relocated and expanded to 42 square feet. And then there are other increases in lot coverage in general, but I think that covers most of it. I had questions regarding there are some like sound attenuation walls that I wasn't sure what the heights of those were.
They're about the 4 feet.
They're 4 feet?
Yes.
And so are those were those for the generator, for the pool equipment? What are those?
Equipment, I think they were actually put in by the landscape architects, but that's what they were for.
Okay, because there's some also proposed toward the east side of the property, like where the easement, toward the easement?
I think there's just 2, and they're on the north side of the property.
That's, yeah, originally I thought I saw that, but then I thought I saw on the landscaping plan that there were some.
There are also landscapes.
Yeah, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but just looking at this close up of the site plan, I believe, sir, these are the sound walls here, and then that pool equipment enclosure area?
Yes.
Yeah, and the pool equipment enclosure area is a 4 foot, also 4 foot.
Yes.
I wish there was a little more clarity in drawings of what we're considering here, because it's very difficult for me to tell.
Could we?
What's being changed? It helps to have either something color coded or bubbled,
Can you? Do you have these?
as opposed to trying to look at 2 different site plans. I'm not sure what we're reviewing here.
And I understand your that confusion in a way, because it's also a very intensely built
Oh, you know what?
property.
You can't
so
actually draw on the screen.
It becomes difficult to tell.
I just want to clarify.
This is the approved.
Very simply, we took the pool house from the south side and we moved it. You have to hold it.
Scrolling down.
All right, so
Maybe zoom in, or could you zoom in a bit more?
go with the old one first.
Okay, sure. Sorry.
So we moved the pool house from the south side and we moved it to the north side here.
Okay.
Pool stayed about generally the same location. Just became a little bit narrower and a little bit longer. We added a little more patio in the back here. We had a little more patio along here, walkway here. We took the pool house, the outdoor shower that was located here originally, and we placed it up in this corner right. That basically is all that we did. Yeah, new.
So as granted, all these changes have already been.
So here is
They're
the
going
pool
to-
house.
The pool, yes.
Here's the outdoor shower that we moved. Here is the pool and the little bit expanded pool patios. These are the patios that were expanded in the back of the house.
Yes,
Basically
it's a lot.
It's also hard to see.
It's hard to see. It is. This is the original
Okay.
survey, but
And when you say these have been moved, so all these have been constructed? And so like foundations are poured and
No.
no, nothing's
No,
built.
Yeah, it doesn't look that way.
We have to
nothing
get-
is moved, like
we have
not
to
even
get-
The pool is. The pool and the spa are in, and I have pictures. Okay, thank you.
The pool and spa were approved by the town.
like
Got
this.
permits to those. Not do anything as far as pool house or any of the patios yet.
Right, so these are all proposed changes to the original approval from 2019, right?
2021.
2021? Okay.
You said that I mean, this is not our purview, but I was just wondering because I'm looking at a site plan and there's a large apple tree, which is not there, to the east of the pool. So the pool was not moved more east. There's an apple tree that appears on the site plan that was submitted this year, and it's not there.
Yeah, well, okay, so those apple trees they weren't that big.
It says large apple tree.
I wrote that. Anything more than like 4 feet tall.
It looks pretty large on the site plan.
Old apple trees. And,
I'm sorry, can you go back so?
Yeah, if
the
you could
public
speak
can
on the
hear you?
mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll speak louder.
No. So
Just
I
lean
believe
closer to the
that
mic.
we ended up losing maybe one apple tree, yes.
Okay, that one was lost. Okay. Well, I also wanted to ask you, because in the original submission, the pool house, I know the dimensions haven't changed. It continues to be 200 square feet, but I didn't see in the original submission, this now has a proposed basement, the pool house, and I didn't see that on the original submission.
No, it wasn't. For some reason, they wanted a little more storage.
So now there's the additional excavation for a basement underneath the pool house.
Very low, it's like 7-foot height basement.
So what do you propose to do with the soils from that? Because this is ag land, right? What are you proposing to do with the soils that will be excavated from beneath the pool house? Because this is agricultural land and the agricultural overlay category here, that's like, you're not supposed to remove them from the property?
No soil is being removed from this site. Absolutely no soil. Most of the soil is being, since it's about anywhere from 4 to 5 feet of topsoil. Then you get into a very, very clean gravelly sand. So most likely the soil will be somewhat mixed in certain applications and other applications. You just can't leave the top soil is very, very heavy. So by mixing it with some of the underneath soil, you make it much more permeable. So you don't get this type of slush soil on a person's property. But no soil is being taken.
Right. I understand the point you're making about mixing it, but where are you going to put this soil? I think that's we're trying to find out what you're planning to do with the soil.
I mean, honestly, I didn't see any huge piles of soil there. So
what happens with this property had a front to back elevation change of about 7 feet.
Oh my.
I'm sorry, what is that?
Which it's a big property. It's a big, long property. So what you do is you elevate the house out of the ground to prevent any kind of water problems, and use all the soil that you took out of the excavation and use that to regrade the land.
Right.
So it's a much more subtle grade.
Right. I understand that concept. The house is built, is it not?
Yes.
House is built.
So, right, I'm just for the sake of the discussion. Excuse me?
It's not graded yet.
It's not graded yet. Okay. So is it your intention to use the soil that comes from the basement for this pool house to incorporate that into the grading project?
All the soil, all the excavated soil from the house, pool house, garage, from the septic system that was placed in it, all that soil is going to be reused. Nothing leaves the site.
Okay. Do we ever get a narrative on that kind of stuff? I mean, is it typical or atypical, or, I mean,
Building department monitors
excuse me?
the building department goes to see if there's,
Okay.
fill
Okay.
being brought in or if it's being carted off.
That's really the issue. What the architect is saying is generally fine under the code, as long as they're just using the soils on site to
Yeah,
regrade.
okay.
Yeah.
That was my initial question.
Bringing
Yes.
in unclean fill or
That's
removing.
all I wanted to know is where was it going to go? If it's going to stay on the site and just be attributed to other elements of this regrading, that's fine. Okay, thank you.
Well, I mean, I'm not opposed to the relocation of the pool house per se. I just, it seems to me like this is far more intensely built up than originally approved. In some ways, and in some ways that we don't necessarily have purview over, such as patios and such. Yeah, I mean, I just, you've added some square footage of lot coverage is basically what I'm saying. I just, apart from that, I just wanted to also make the observation, since you are here for a modification, that there have been changes to the elevations that aren't reflected on the plans that were approved. So in other words, like fenestration that has changed, the style of doors, like the garage doors, the front door, things like that have actually changed. So those are technically they're modifications, and that would need to be reflected on the architectural plans and then be submitted to this board also. As well as even, I mean, I know this is part of the Hearst rating and all of that, but technically this board also needs to review solar panels, and I don't believe those were part of the original submission. And I know that those have been added to the project.
Those were in the original plans that
They were in the original plans? I didn't see them anywhere, I'm sorry.
they were there though. We were required to put solar.
No, I know that's the requirement. I just don't recall seeing them, and oftentimes they're not in the original plans, and then they're surprised there. So I just wanted to call attention to those, and maybe Eric, if you could just pull up the front facade picture.
Okay, just give me a second. Stop screen sharing so I can not make everyone dizzy as I.
And other elevation, I mean, I've circled them on the elevations here, but windows that changed from being square to rectangular, rectangular to square. Those need to be accurately reflected in our plans, because what was approved is what the building department should have, is what we should have. And next time somebody would go out, they would see that that's not reflected. Okay.
See, in this packet, I have the pool house elevations. Let me just dig around a little bit here.
Like for instance, the garage on the east side was proposed with 4 sort of horizontal rectangular windows, and now it has a door and 3 windows, right?
Those doors were selected by the owner.
No, I understand, but the plans that I have don't reflect a door. So I'm pointing out that those need to be revised. In addition to the fact that right above there, you've added a similar, this pediment part here to the garage elevation as well, and that's not on the plans. So the fenestration here, for instance, just the one that we have, the spacing on the 4 windows on the second story is equal. And I presume for some reason on the interior, there were changes. Now the center windows are close together, and then the other 2 are farther apart, right? So they're not equally spaced.
I'd have to review that.
So anyway, that's
Yeah.
what's okay. I'll hand it off to everyone else.
Does anybody
for
else
comment
have any
if you have
comments on
anything.
this?
Oh, and I'm sorry. Forgive, it's just lots of change there, as usual with these projects, so many changes. Was the house originally proposed in natural cedar?
Parts of it was.
So the rear elevation right now has natural cedar
I
only.
think so, yes. Looks white to me.
What's the white?
Well, all of it is white, and then you see the section where there's a man working there on the second story.
Yeah.
That looks like it's natural, but I have from the March 23rd submission in 2021, siding natural cedar board and batten,
Okay.
trim to be white, roof natural, roof black standing seam galvalume. It's actually gray, I think now.
Is that standing seam or asphalt?
No, the roof is cedar, but then there are details like the 2 dormers in the garage there that have metal roofing.
Okay.
But it's not, I don't think it's black.
Okay. Well, so part of the difficulty we're having, I guess, is that when when this board makes an approval, this is the board that pays attention to all these little details. That's our job. So when we approve certain details and they're not installed as planned, the applicant has the right to approach us to change them. But if they're changed without the approval, that creates a problem for your certificate of occupancy, because we would not necessarily approve the as-built if we haven't had a chance to modify that, if that modification hasn't been made. So I understand that you're applying for a modification to, reorganize, put certain structures in different places than had been for the original approval, but I think there's a couple of other things that you should add to your modification that Member Leon has been detailing. And maybe if the house is still under construction, I don't, it just, I'm not sure where to go with this, because
We'll make new elevations that will reflect exactly what's there, and I'll present that to the board.
right, but I think part of the problem is this is an agricultural overlay application, and what we are bound by the code to approve are natural materials. So painting that siding white is not something we would have approved. That's one of the things.
Necessarily.
Well, I can't say hard and fast, but as a general principle, we don't approve those kinds of things. So I don't know who the general contractor is, but you're going to have to. I'm just worried about how the other things are going to go if to this point so much has
deviated.
Thank you. From the original approval, that you're going to run into lots of problems when it comes time for C of O. So I think maybe you have to sit down with the GC and the homeowner and say, we can't make these changes without approaching the ARB for an approval first, for the fenestration, for the doors, the windows, the color, the style of the wood that you're using. We give this very careful review as part of our charge to maintain the rural character of the community. And I understand that you're working for a client and that they're asking you to do things. I used to be married to a builder. Excuse me?
I have no choice.
Would you mind? I'm sorry. Could you be at the microphone?
No, I understand. Could you move to the mic, sir? Because this is recorded, yes, and that way we can go back and listen to it. So
first time in history, somebody wants to hear what I have to say. But anyway.
Well, no, we're interested in what you have to say, but I think that perhaps maybe you should have the general contractor come to the next board meeting.
It's not possible.
Not possible.
I mean, I can provide you with all the elevations and details on all the changes that were done. To the exact, every window, every siding, whatever.
Right.
Do that and give that to you. Give that to the board. There was no malintent made by this owner or anyone to disrespect this board.
No.
But as things progress, and this has been a very, very long process, and has been people constantly changing their minds back and forth all the time. It's
I understand.
quite an insane situation. all
No,
the
I
time.
understand. I understand. I was married to a general contractor. I get it. I get it. I'm just saying, at this point, I don't know how to advise you on these next steps, except to say that stick to the plan and tell them that they need to stick to the plan or to apply for modification, that that's their choice.
So I would add, as architect, you should be telling them that they're bound to adhere to what has been approved. And if there are deviations from that, that you need to tell them that they're deviating from the approval and risking us not approving as built. And the further this goes down the road and more changes, the higher, I can't speak for how the rest of the board will say, but they're taking quite a bit of risk here that we may ask for significant changes to get a CO. Now, I will say about what has come before the board tonight, the relocation of the pool. I have not seen this application before. And Kathy, you have not, correct?
No,
this is your
my
first time
look
seeing
at-
it.
Yeah.
So what I have here in terms of a drawing package doesn't give me enough. I can't visualize. There are no render. I don't like to ask people for renderings because they're time intensive. It can be expensive, but this is also a pretty significant development. So it's difficult for me to make an informed judgment about what is being proposed here. It's not like we're talking about moving an outdoor shower or maybe changing a couple of windows. We're talking about compositionally changing the site here. So that needs to be communicated in drawings more than a survey and like these kind of rudimentary site plans.
I think what would help the board is if you could do what you're doing now, which is sort of indicating with the pen.
I have highlighted on the new site.
I need a drawing that says, like, I need bubbles, I need different colors. It's an imposition on any review board to give them two drawings and say, it's your duty to look at the two and compare. It should actually be like on one drawing that explains what's approved and what's being changed. I will give this to you. Okay.
That would be great.
However it's done.
Everything highlighted.
Well, however you want to do it.
The
It just
changes.
needs to be communicated.
Right, because if we can see what was approved and then the overlay has a bubble of what you're proposing, then we know what the difference is without having to flip back and forth between pages.
That will make things way too confusing for you.
We've,
You have too many lines then.
no, that's how we prefer it, sir. Yeah, no, I understand that. I understand that's what your point of view is, but that's how we prefer it. And it's how we've been asking applicants to provide.
I'll get
Yes,
that
if
to
you would, that would be helpful.
do that.
Thank you. Do you have anything else?
Yes, well, so, I mean, one of the things that I would say is that this house was approved as a 6,295 square foot house in natural cedar. It is now white. So, but to that point of the square footage, and this is not your problem, it is something that we administratively, I think, have to revise, is that the original resolution states that we approved a new 3,760 square foot house. So
there was no change in this house.
You're not understanding what I'm saying. We have to change the resolution to reflect
we made an administrative error.
It's an administrative error.
Yeah, so we're trying to correct the record while you're here and representing the applicant.
Because your application originally was correct. And it was reflected.
It was incorrectly recorded.
Incorrectly recorded in the resolution. Okay, I just wanted to have you know that.
This is the first floor.
So yeah, the 3,760 only reflects really the footprint.
All right, so why don't you make a motion, Winnie, and we'll
make a motion to do what?
to remedy
Oh, for this, I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that way we can do that while he's here. And
Yeah. So, I guess, what is it, to modify the resolution?
to
Correct
yeah,
the resolution?
modify, amend. I don't know, David,
Amend?
what's the language? Amending the resolution?
Gosh, I guess it's a modification, but
Okay,
either way, it's the same result. We could just call it a administrative modification.
okay. All right.
All
An
right.
administrative. My God.
What's a,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I make a motion to make an administrative modification to the resolution dating from
22nd, 2021.
April 22nd, 2021, to reflect the accurate square footage of the approved house, which is actually 6,295 square feet as
Okay.
opposed to 3,760.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we fixed our mistake and we did it in your presence, which was part of what we needed to do. Okay. So is there anything more for Mr. Ruse?
Mr. Roos, I think if your client is giving you a hard time and not listening to you when you tell them they can't make these changes, you're going to have a house built that we're not going to approve. And we've actually required people to demolish parts of structures that were never approved. And so your client is going to be looking at a very costly process if they don't get with the program here.
We could ask them to change the entire siding on the house.
Yeah, and we've done that before. So you need to tell them that they can't just willy-nilly make changes every day and call you with the changes.
It's a big risk.
Yeah.
For them, not for you.
Right. But it's going to cost them a lot of money to fix this if we don't go along with these changes.
And if you don't mind, just one last thing,
Yep.
Eric, do I have a picture there, for instance, of the garage doors?
Yes.
All right, because I just want you to
I
see.
saw those.
Did you see them?
They're like they're gas station garage doors.
Well, they're not what was approved.
Right.
I don't think they're in keeping.
I agree.
No, definitely not.
So this is the type of change that would have had to come before us.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
In
you're-
addition to painting the house
Yeah.
white.
And even though it's not before us right now, you're very likely going to have to fix those.
What I can do is when I come in front of this board next time, which I hopefully will be the next time you meet, I'll have elevations and photographs of every side of the house. And then I'll have the originals also. We have all three to compare.
Okay,
And with the noted changes. There were changes to the siding, there was changes to the door, there was change to the style of the window, which I don't know if there was.
right.
But this way you'll have each one to compare and look at. You'll have
Right, but
site plans will be color coded, every change that's being proposed. And it will have an underlay of the original plan.
that's great.
So that everything will be crystal clear
That's
as
good.
I can
That's great.
possibly make it. Because
Okay.
I'm not trying to make
No,
your
we
job
understand that. We
No,
understand
yeah,
that.
and you're intimately involved with this, whereas we
Yeah, we're just looking at
are
it.
looking
Right.
at it almost for the first time, right?
Right.
So
I'm looking at
happy
it.
to cooperate with the board and
No,
do
we-
everything I can to make this go without causing problems. Now,
We understand that.
changes occurred. We'll try to rectify as much as we can.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, have a good evening. All right, next up is issues.
If I deliver all this stuff in a couple of days, will I get on the next meeting?
Probably not. We have a waiting list for ag overlays. I'm sorry. Julie will be able to help you with that. You can call her at the office and she can give you a sense of when.
Originally, I did file December 22nd. And I was very prompt at getting everything in and extremely prompt. when
We understand.
problem.
Right.
So I would ask the board to try to accommodate me as much as possible. That's
We'll do the best we can, as we do with everybody. Okay, thank you. Have a good evening. Okay, may Mast One LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-201-1-8.1. Chip, this is yours.
So this is an application to proceed to a C of O for a 10-year-old home in the Georgia Association that recently underwent some very minor renovations. The 4-acre property overlooks Georgia Pond directly. In our July 8th, 2021 resolution, we approved enlarging an open porch. That's the porch. It was enlarged to the left by 485 square feet, adding an exterior door with a stoop to the house. That would be, that's not it. That's the screen
There
porch.
it is. Is that it?
Yes, that's it. Adding a doorway and stoop to on an adjacent screen porch, which is the one Eric showed us previously, and replacing a second floor railing, which you see on the top there. All the work has been skillfully and beautifully done. It conforms to our resolution, and I believe this application can proceed to a C of O.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Okay, may I have a second, please? Frank, you should make a motion, Chip.
So I make a motion to approve this application for a request for a C of O and instruct staff to notify the building department that is ready for the C of O.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I think we are adjourned now. Is that the end of our? I'm sorry. Oh, we signed the oh my gosh, yes, I
Where's
forgot.
your
I have to
agenda? I'm
read
looking
the,
for
I
it.
know, I'm like out of
Misplaced
practice.
it.
That's what happens. I haven't had a meeting in 3 weeks. I forget what I'm doing. Okay. This evening, we are signing the resolutions for the following applications. David McGarva, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-118-1-63. Montauk Beach House LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-49-4-52.7. 106 Stephen Hans Path, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-193-2-4. Carrie Barrett, Longhouse Reserve, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-142-1-13.1. And Henry Beard, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-189-4-2.1. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Okay.